as a foreign service if we don't tell people really, all of the information before they come in so they can make the right decision. The problem is you don't know what it's going to feel like to have children. You don't know.
And you don't know what's going to happen.
And you don't know what's going to happen, and you don't know what conditions they might have. I mean, in my case, the second all shucks moment was figuring out that my son, who's 12, who actually is also learning disabled, needed to come back to the States for that reason, but also because he'd never lived in the U.S. I was terrified to come back because I can't afford to be here. I mean, just frankly, I cannot afford to live here. But we had to, So those are those constant decisions that you're up against all the time in the foreign service. As far as the representational defense, I would say it really depends on your job and on which post you're in. In some places, it can be very, very heavy. In some places, it might require, well, in your case, your spouse is an officer, so it might require both of you being involved, which in some ways might be nicer in that sense, possibly. But just really, really one of those things that you have duty calls and you have to do it, unfortunately. But in some jobs, it can be pretty constant.
Yes.
I just had something that I was thinking about. My name is Seth McGarry, and I'm also just joined the Foreign Service as a human resource officer, and I'm sure I'll be faced with a lot of these type of issues. With the flexible work schedule, something that came to mind was it's everything's talking about asking permission from an individual manager, versus it seems to me that a policy that would say not that this position is eligible for it, but this position can't not be eligible for it. Do you understand what I mean? So the wording of it saying,
spin-off.
So if this position can, if it's feasible that this position can be in a flexible work schedule, there's no way for you to prevent that from happening. Some sort of policy written in that format.
It may be that we use the model that is now rolling out with telework to do that, even though telework came after some of these other flexibilities, because that is what this legislation that we have in place now says, that every position has to be indicated. And when I say indicated, I mean we had to go into the global employment management system. There's a box that you check, eligible for telework, not eligible. And so the position has to be identified. And then the question of, is the person who's occupying the position, by virtue of their work habits, whatever, are they eligible? And if those two things line up, then the answer is yes. So it may be that that's kind of the direction, Seth, that we're moving, and I think it's a good idea. It's a good idea.
I just wonder. I mean, just as I don't know any Foreign Service officers who take advantage of the flex, although you're saying that 25% of the department does, but I don't know. And maybe I've been away for a few years. Maybe I'm not up to date, but I've never met a Foreign Service officer who had the compressed work schedule.
It's probably more civil.
I'm wondering when it comes to telework whether it'll be the same thing. Can a desk officer be eligible for telework?
In theory, yes. Now, we know what our culture is, what's going on here. What I have been working in since 2004 is going to different offices, meeting with supervisors, meeting with employees, and in some cases we meet with the employees first, and then we meet with the managers, and then we get them together. And we ask the question, what's the problem? What is it that, why isn't this working? What is it that you want to see happen? Would you be willing to try it for 6 weeks? Sometimes that works. Would you be willing to say, the person's going to come to work, go into their office, put a sign on their door that says, I'm teleworking today. So that every time you interact with them, you have to either do it by email, which is how we communicate anyway, or call them on the phone, to have a little experiment in what it's like. I talked to employees about the fact that you have to develop a virtual presence in the office. Just because you're teleworking, it is incumbent upon you to check in online, you don't actually need to do more than a person in the office in the sense, but you need to create a virtual presence. If an email goes out that says there's a meeting, bingo, I hear from my teleworkers with the telephone number, call me in, dial me in. So, I think that there are ways to make it work. Talking about these experiments, OPM has an experiment right now, you've read about it, where they turn loose, what is it, 400 people? Is it that many?
Kathie knows a lot.
The row.
Yeah, they have turned loose 400 folks to kind of work anytime they want to work, as long as the job gets done and the results come in. And that won't work for every job, obviously, but it will work for some. Now, what I would like to see is for us as a department to sort of come out with an idea of what we want this to look like in the future, because there are some agencies in the federal government, the Patent and Trademark has gone way, they are way into telework, but they are doing away with office space. Now, one of the questions that's come up in our office is, well, if we have all these people teleworking and we give up office space, what if the next person we hire, they need a desk for? Or what if the mother-in-law moves in, I am one so I can say that, moves in at home, and then suddenly this person doesn't want to telework anymore. Get me out here. Or, I don't know, whatever, and then there's no place to go back to the office. So there is no question that the thrust of some of the reports that we are getting now report to us how much real estate savings the department is affecting by doing telework. So don't kid yourself that telework is all about helping people with their work-life balance. There is a very significant underlying thrust here about getting, reducing the cost. And that cost is being transferred onto the employee because we don't give people computer setups, So
They get a fall.
Still need a computer.
You still need a computer, you need a desk, and you need a decent chair. And I don't know about y'all, but I have telework. I do it every once in a while. I have a telework agreement. I work harder when I'm teleworking than I do when I'm in the office. And many of my employees tell me the same. Because you feel more sort of responsible for getting stuff done. And, I think when that seat...
And no
distraction. Yeah, you're less distracted unless there are some of these other...
The most ineffective place to work is in the office.
But, so I think that these experiments, what I would like to see, I'll just say it myself, what I would like to see is for every department employee to be able to have 1 day a week of telework. That would make me happy. And I'm not really interested, personally speaking, in the department going to 5 days, 3 days, 5 days, whatever, because I think that I value the culture. The reason it works well for me, and everybody on my staff teleworks, is it not true? The reason it works for me is because I know my employees really well. They know how goofy I am. We know each other. I can be on the phone, I can be online, I see their face, I know what's going on. Now, when you have a situation where people are moving in and out of jobs with frequency, you need to establish that before you turn somebody loose. There's a little bit of trust going on. But the other thing is, the State Department should be the very best at this in the federal government, because after all, we've been managing these 260 missions overseas forever. We know how to do this. We know how to do this. So we have to get a blend of what we know works well.
I don't want to keep adding, but I think there are 2 impediments that function in the department. One is the morning meeting. And I think the morning meeting, which I think is based on a military system, in which everybody has to feed up to their boss, so his or her boss can feed up to the next boss, so his or her boss can feed up to the next boss. That is why managers want you there, just so that you can feed them that tidbit to bring to their boss.
And it can be done virtually, though.
It can be done virtually, but that gets to the second point, which is classified materials.
Yeah, classified is a hard nut to crack.
And I was at, Margot and I were at a conference in which, talking about telework and flexibility, in which there was a director from the Department of Homeland Security, and he was talking about the way DoD works this, which is, and the fact that DHS piggybacks on it, which is that they have satellite classified